Hello, 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 and welcome everybody. This is the Thrive Network, and I'm Susanna Kennedy. And I'm really excited today because I discovered Jen through Norma Simon, and all of you know Norma Simon by now. And Jen and her know each other. And so Norma said, "You've got to meet Jen." And I said, "Okay, wonderful." So I just want to welcome her onto the show. And we are going to be speaking about a whole lot of different spiritual journey work and Akashic records. Have any of you heard of that before?
It's everything that's ever been experienced, every memory, every possibility of every soul, of every living organism. What the Akashic records does is allows us to understand that we have free will. And what that means is we get to choose everything, every experience. We get to choose how we respond. We get to choose what we believe, what we attach to, all of those things. And when we understand that we have free will, it changes everything. This is about you empowering yourself, you connecting to your own electrical grid. What most of us do is disempower ourselves, so we give our energy to others.
When we exist within the wound, we shut out opportunities because of that wound, and we shut out certain aspects because of that wounding. So it's about how do we get through that wound and how do we heal that wound. Maybe we can speak a little bit about these agreements that our souls make. When we come into this specific earthly body in this form with this consciousness. Hello, 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 and welcome everybody. This is the Thrive Network, and I'm Susanna Kennedy. And I'm really excited today because I discovered Jen through Norma Simon, and all of you know Norma Simon by now. She is a channel and a healer and a guide. She is fantastic. And Jen and her know each other. And so Norma said, "You've got to meet Jen." And I said, "Okay, wonderful." And I had the most amazing first introduction to Jen and her work. So I just want to welcome her onto the show. And we are going to be speaking about a whole lot of different spiritual journey work and Akashic records. Have any of you heard of that before? Let me know. I can see some of you already logging on now on Instagram and saying, "Oh, excited for today," which is absolutely great. But let's first welcome Jen. How are you doing today, Jen?
Doing really great. Lovely to be here.
It's so lovely to have you here as well. Jen, you tuning in from the other side of the world. Where are you coming in from?
So I'm in San Francisco, California, San Francisco area.
San Francisco area. Now, I know we've got a global community that tunes into Thrive. It's one of my favorite things is that we reach people all over the world. I also want this to be a wonderful interactive process. So I am going to chat to Jen, but I do want you guys to please ask any questions. If you've got any questions, we are so open to answering them as always. So get involved in the conversation, whether you're watching this live or a recording of it. It doesn't matter. I go back and I look through messages afterwards. So please do get involved. So I think, Jen, let's start with the Akashic records. What are they and how did you come to find them?
So the Akashic records, which the word Akasha is ethers. So it's everything that's ever been experienced, every memory, every possibility of every soul, of every living organism. It is, some people think of it as a library, the information arm of God. So there's this energy of everything you have been, could be, the potential of everything is the past, the present, the future is all held in this space.
That, I mean, for a lot of people, that sounds like unthinkable. That there would be a space where everything is held. But perhaps we need to think of it as, because sometimes I think, is there any time, space, reality? Are we just experiencing something from our perspective in this time, in this consciousness? But actually everything's happening at the same time in different dimensions, So how do we wrap our heads around this concept that, you know, there is a library that basically holds every possibility, doesn't it, Jen?
Right. So the past isn't fixed, neither is the future. The only thing we can really engage in is the present. And this is the whole point of spirituality, is right? People always say to be present. And what that means is that we're not caught up in the past, like thinking about what we should have said, what we could have done, if only. And we're not thinking about, well, this is going to happen in the future, so I need to wait or do stuff. So the idea is to be very present to the fact that you, like everything in life, is in change. That's what it's all about. It's all about changing, like in a constant cycle of change. So that's our information. This library that we have, if you want to think of it as a library, it's probably the easiest way to think of it, because it's kind of like you can understand it contains everything. And then you can just go in and access the information you need.
Amazing. I mean, what a wonderful thing to be able to access. What an incredible space to be able to access. I see that we've got people tuning in from England, from Mpumalanga, from another one from England. America is tuning in. France is tuning in. So we really do have a global community. I see some of my Cape Townian fans tuning in on this side as well. I am looking at Instagram and Facebook, guys. So if I look down, that's what I'm looking. That's what I'm looking at. Jen, I think maybe let's speak a little bit about why this can be so helpful, like why accessing this space can assist people and how it can assist people.
Right. So some people think of the Akashic Records like the internet. So just kind of like what you were talking about, right? Here we are, we're just like thinking about the time. We have this construct that is just a human construct, just like connecting with people, you know, 20 years ago, who could have thought we could have done this? Like we could all be in the same, or whatever it is, 30 years ago, that we can all be in our own spaces and connect in live time, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at. We're looking at this humongous energy that exists around us, and we are all soul beings, right? We all have an energy, a spirit that is not just the physical body. You know, we have our thoughts, but we also have our emotions. So that's what connects us to the spirit energy, right? The emotion, our feelings, that. So if you think about how can this vast expanse of information, what good is it? How can it help me? Think about how we run on energy. We're energetic beings. So everything we do is energy. And so, you know, we can understand an energetic system because that's what a lot of things do. Just this, right? All of this is energy. And if you think about the frequency that you're on, because that's energy, that the frequency we dialed up into, like right now, us connecting through a frequency, that if you're on a station, like an old station, or you're living in the past, like oldies and goodies, you're living in something that was, or you go too fast in the future and you're not connected to the physical being. So our bodies are purely energy. And emotion is what runs the energy. So when we have stuck feelings or stuck memories, that creates emotion that sticks in our bodies. And how do we move that or change that? Is through inquiry, being curious. And the Akashic Records allows us to ask questions because it's a divination tool, right? So all divination tools, whether it's cards, whether it's the Akashic Records, numerology, any of those things, astrology, those are all divination tools. So what they do is, just like if you have a diviner, you know, divining rod, you're seeking something. A divining rod is seeking like gold or metal. And so in the same way, when you connect to a divining tool, you ask questions. This is a really important understanding of just how you live your life. Asking the right kinds of questions, phrasing them in a way that's going to give you the answer you need, as opposed to keeping you stuck. So if you ask yourself,
I was just saying that's so important. What you just said is asking the right question, but in the right way, because it's a saying, isn't it, that the question is more important than the answer, because when you ask the right question in the right way, the correct answer is bound to come. But when you're asking the question in the incorrect way and it's unclear, that's when there's confusion and cloudiness, and it doesn't really work out.
Right. Exactly. It's like the riddle. Our divination history, shall we say, is from the idea of the riddle. Like, why is the riddle so powerful? Or in the old days, when the oracles, the people that would go to the oracles were sitting on these energies, right? They were sitting on these PowerPoints of energy. They would give answers in riddles. And the reason why they would give riddles is because we each interpret things differently. Like, we're not all the same, and we don't all interpret things the same. So if you get a riddle, first of all, you can't blame the person who's giving you the information. But the other thing is, you're really trying to figure out what's the answer, right? What is this riddle? What is the riddle saying? And so you can then interpret. It's also fixed information, right? Like, we tend to ask questions or focus on what's wrong with the world, or what's wrong with me. It's like, oh, I'm not enough. I don't level up. And then what's wrong with the world? Why are they doing those things? Or why is this happening to me? As opposed to what is resonating. Remember, if you think about yourself as energy, then you're thinking about the resonance of what matches with you. So if you have a certain belief or feeling that engages a feeling, it creates a resonance that then calls in. So we experience whatever we expect, right? So if we expect everything to suck, it does. If we think that everything's going to go wrong, then most of the time it does, because we are engaging energetically with our thought patterns, our feelings, etc. So as how it can help us, how the Akashic Records can help us, well, if you think about this vast resource, this vast library, and you going to the librarian and you're saying, look, I want to know something about why am I, why do I have these same relationships, the same kind of people showing up, and I'm always feeling like I'm not enough, right?
Which so many people go through. Right. I think that's one of the biggest, most common wounds, isn't it, Jen, is this feeling of not being enough. In fact, for all of you that are watching right now, it would be great if you could be honest and say, me too. I know that I have felt not enough many times in my life's journey, and I still do. It's I think one of the reasons why I teach self-love is you always teach what you have to learn yourself. And I'm way far on the journey compared to where I was, but I'm still on the journey. And that's why I share my knowledge as I go along with you, so that I hope that what I'm learning can help you guys as well. But I will be honest, and I'll be vulnerable, and I'll say, yes, that is one of my wounds that I am working on. Who else watching right now? Just say me too in the comments below, because when we say me too, we allow everybody else not to feel alone, and then we don't feel so bad about ourselves. So be brave and say me too in the comments below, and I'm going to let Jen carry on.
Yeah, so me too, right? I think this is definitely a human condition, but we have to think about how we have been conditioned to think of ourselves in terms of lack. Because if we felt completely whole within ourselves, not that we know everything and we have everything, but that we have the potential, right, of becoming something or becoming. When I say something, I really mean within ourselves that we believe in, that we become something that has value to us, and that we're connected to things that help us become more of that, because we're all seeking love. We're all seeking to know we are enough, and our world has, conditioned us to think we're not enough. And it's a great game to think you're not enough, right? I mean, I know the mind, there's things that happen, there's conditioning that happens inside of us. And this is how the record can really help us. We ask those questions, why? And we find out about reasons, because there is no time. We're on a continuum. We can go into past lives, we can go into future, we can go into all these different things. But the key here isn't so much for the information's sake, like, oh, I know I was someone famous, I know I was this. Well, we may have been famous, but look, there were a lot of ordinary lifetimes, right? And so it's not so much about I was famous or something like that, as it is, what was it that I believed when I had an experience that made me narrow my thinking or get a certain either belief or take on a condition that I would believe this about myself, right? Yeah. Something that I experienced that I decided, okay, I'm not enough, right?
Yeah, so we speak about this a lot on Thrive Network, because I think that it's one of the things that we deal with a lot. And how I refer to it, the language that I normally use for you guys that watch a lot, is we speaking about our wounds, our wounding, you know, that thing that is inside us that makes us feel less than and not enough and separated from and whatever it is. And when we feel that, or when we exist within the wound, we shut out opportunities because of that wound, and we shut out certain aspects because of that wounding. So it's about how do we get through that wound, and how do we heal that wound, which I think is one of the things that you do, right?
Yes, a lot of wounding. I do work on things like especially deep wounding from past lives. Sometimes we don't know whether you believe in past lives or not. It's just thinking about a continuum of experience. I've had all this experience. I've chosen all these patterns, programs, ways of responding to the world. And if you think about wounding in a sense that it's a place we go to, right? You know, if you think you live in space of many rooms, many spaces, many experiences, it gives you a certain lens that you're looking through your life. You're looking at your life through a certain lens. And so everything you experience, you have the filter of the wound that forces you to experience life through that same filter. So it's like your perspective. It becomes your perspective. Like, I'm not enough. So what does it look like when I have an experience and it has to go through a filter that says I'm not enough, right? Then it's going to color your experience a certain way. Unless you can break that pattern, that programming, you can dissolve it. And that's what we do in the records. We dissolve a lot of the old bindings, agreements, patterns, vows, programming that we have taken on. Because again, we're a matrix. If you think about this idea of being energetic, and here you're building a system, a matrix, a continuum that you live in that has certain conditions. So everything that comes through is impacted by that condition.
It's, guys, I can see there's somebody, I've been getting this every once in a while, and I haven't actually had it for a good sort of 2 weeks now. But if you are approached while you are watching the Thrive Network by anyone saying, inbox me for a reading, or inbox me for a private one-on-one, or anything like that, guys, if I haven't vetted them, I'm not going to promote them to you. So please don't respond to those. It could be any kind of hack. It could be any kind of, I don't know. So I just want to be very clear that unless I say this person is wonderful, I've dealt with this person, I have not chosen them to actually be somebody of service to you, and I have no responsibility to those people. And I know that there's a lot of people that will take advantage of people that are vulnerable. So just please be aware of who you ask for advice and support from at any point. I just had to block someone right now because I could see one of those people had jumped on. So it's not coming from me. Then please don't take it as somebody who is part of this network. Sorry, Jen, I just saw that come up and I just didn't want anybody to jump on that. One of the things I think is maybe important to also just speak about is this, I don't know how many of you online right now believe in past lifetimes, and do you just say I do or I believe in the comments below so we get an understanding, or I don't? That's also okay. My understanding of past and future lifetimes has actually shifted over the years. I feel like there is no real time, space, reality. It's all kind of, possibly happening at the same time. I don't know though, because I really don't know, but maybe we can speak a little bit about these agreements that our souls make, when we come into this specific earthly body in this form with this consciousness. What are the agreements? Because I know that we've spoken about this as well in different forms, but what is your understanding of the agreements, Jen?
All right, so I just want to clarify there's two different types of agreements. One is the soul comes in with a certain potential or idea. So you can say that, you can see that if you have a numerology reading or you have an astrology reading, then there's this idea, of what's my potential, right? You come in, these are the potential, our destiny. That's what we call our destiny. It's the potential of who we can become, right? So the ideas that your soul has agreed to or decided on before it comes into the body. So there is that. And then, of course, there's the other stuff, the agreements that we collect as humans in a human form or some other form that we take on, right? I see this happening. This is my understanding of it. Therefore, I'm going to make this agreement. Like we make vows and agreements all the time, right? Like we have vows, the marriage vow. It's no mistake that the marriage vow says until death do us part, because do you want to carry on being connected to this person forever, right? So words are very powerful. And in fact, if you look at, great writings, or even in the Bible, if you think about that in terms of being think about writing as, again, it's energetic. So it gives us this understanding, but it also connects to us. We connect to it energetically. So words are energetics, like what we say, right? So when we say, I'm going to do a certain thing, or I'm not, or this is terrible, and we make a decision about something, we often are locked into those decisions because we've kind of vowed it or we've declared it. So when we're children, and even as adults, but a lot of stuff happens when we're children, like even when we're born, like the moment we're born, as when the soul comes into the body, we make decisions about things. We hear things and we decide, just like we decide I'm not enough. How do we come to that place that we're not enough? Because we hear somebody telling us certain things, and then we believe that what they're saying is true. So
yeah, we believe the story around what happened, right? Because something will happen to me and I will feel one way about it. The same thing could happen to you and you would feel another way about it. And
right.
How we felt about that thing that happened to us becomes our story, which then informs our beliefs around that thing. So I could interpret it one way and you could interpret it another way.
Yes, and we make decisions based on that. So when you were talking about the people just coming into the stream and kind of making an offer, unsolicited offer, right? And then you told them, look, are you telling everybody? I don't know who that is, right? So that's kind of how we have to operate. We have to use the tools that we have at our disposal to ask the right questions, right? To get curious and also to speak up. Like, this is a simple example, but it's kind of how we live our lives. Something happens and we don't ask any questions. We just accept it. We don't go, when somebody says, oh, you suck, we go, oh, I suck, I'm suck. Oh, I'm terrible. And I know that a lot of it can be conditioning because we have it over and over again. And at some point we give up. But the point is, that's the point we need to be more curious. Why? This person says I suck. Do I really suck? Let me have a proof. Am I good at something? Oh, I don't know how to do something. Does that mean I suck? No, I can learn how to do it. So you have to be your own advocate for yourself. You have to be able to use the filter and go, is the information I'm receiving or what somebody's telling me, is that actually true for me, right?
That's it. And it's funny that you say that, because we had our numerologist on today, Wendy, and we were speaking about how 5s don't take things personally. And I was saying that one of my favorite books is The 4 Agreements. And one of the rules or the laws of one of the agreements is don't take things personally, because the reality is that if we take everything personally, we're going to be suffering all the time. But if somebody says something negative to you, and my example was actually from Friends, the sitcom Friends, with Rachel and Monica and Phoebe, and Rachel and Monica get told something negative about them, and they're like, and they turn around and go, well, Phoebe, you're flaky. And she goes, yeah, it's true, I can be flaky. And she just, she's not affected by that. She like really sees it about herself, and she doesn't make it a horrible negative about herself. Which I suppose is a challenge for all of us, to not be hard on ourselves, to rather look at the challenges or the aspects of ourselves that we would like to shift or change, but not be awful to ourselves in that process. So Jen, I want to ask you about, you've created these beautiful cards. And I think that maybe just if you could explain to everyone how you work with the Akashic records, because Jen has got these amazing cards. Guys, here's the book, and I'm going to show you. I actually did my first spread for myself the other day. I only got these on Tuesday. They were sent to me, and here's some of them. And I did my own spread. But I think if you can just explain to people how you work with the Akashic records, and then we can chat a little bit about your cards, and maybe we can even speak about the ones that I picked, so that people get a little bit more of a feel.
Sounds awesome. So yes, so how I work with the records is, again, I talk to it's a divination process. You ask the question around the things that you feel connected to, that feel, and it's not all negative. It's not always like how I suffered. It can be what my potential. You've got to think about everything in terms of it being a full round, even yourself and the way you live. Everything is a completely round kind of energy or experience that keeps moving. The torus, I think it's called the torus, this thing. It's the energy that moves, that connects us to everything. So the idea is, for me, I believe in free will. The Akashic Records what the Akashic Records does is allows us to understand that we have free will. And what that means is we get to choose everything, every experience. We get to choose how we respond. We get to choose what we believe, what we attach to, all of those things. And when we understand that we have free will, it changes everything. Because when you know that I'm choosing to behave like this, right? I'm having a bad day, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm sending it out to someone, I'm yelling, and I feel bad about it. I'm choosing that, whether I recognize it or not. So you have greater freedom when you go, oh, I'm doing that and I can change it. So you give yourself the opportunity to become different. And again, it's not about wrong or right. This isn't about, the polarities of all the extremes of what we experience. This is black, this is white, this is wrong. You're bad, you're that. These are just opinions, right? Everyone has opinions. And so we all get to decide where we are on the continuum between two extremes. What is the place where we feel neutral? And so we can make better choices. And the work that I do is around that, like helping people understand the power that they have. Like, remember I talked about the electricity or the energy. This is about you empowering yourself, you connecting to your own electrical grid. What most of us do is disempower ourselves, so we give our energy to others. So when we're angry at others, they actually have control over us, right? They're moving the switch. So to me, this is what I believe. I believe in the soul's choice, in coming to terms with, this is who I am. I'm okay with who I am, right? I'm okay that I have these thoughts and ideas that I'm, the idea is to become more comfortable with being human in your, and spiritual. Like, how do you come to terms with being this vast, magnificent being in this body that has these restrictions? So understanding restrictions are not, it's not a bad thing to have restrictions. It's not wrong or bad or whatever you want to call it. It's not a negative to have restrictions. We need restrictions. What it is now we have this Play-Doh that we can do anything we want with. And so what do we want to do? How do we want to feel about our experience? So again, my work is all about that, having free will, igniting your soul's choice, moving away from the negative, if you will, thinking around who you are. Because when you're sitting around and you're spending so much energy thinking about how you suck, there's not much energy going to how amazing life is and how you can have a different experience and how you don't suck, right? Because to every negative, there's a positive. So how do you find that thing where you go, okay, I suck at that. That's okay. Just like the example you gave, it's like, oh, okay, that's true. Do I still want that? Do I want something different? And to me, there's a lot of pain. We carry a lot of pain because of these agreements we've made. Because of how we're choosing to engage with people around us a certain way. Like somebody says something to me and then my typical response is, oh, I feel bad about myself. I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to hurt them. I'm going to do all these things instead of going, oh, I don't have an opinion about someone else's opinion. I'm focused on my own experience. Mm-hmm. And so that's really the work that I do, is to help people free themselves from all of this kind of like garbage idea of the matrix that we're tied into, this whole system. I'm nothing, so you can be something. And then I'm something, so you can be nothing. Like we all got to take these different roles.
But these agreements that we make, I mean, some of them are agreements that we make with ourselves because of situations that are created. But some of these agreements are soul agreements. They are created before we even incarnate into this consciousness.
Right. We didn't actually finish that conversation. So, it's very confusing when you say soul agreements, because soul agreements, the way I look at them, soul agreements are often kind of bigger picture things. Like the idea is when we're coming here, like even if you think about things like karma, for instance, oh, it's my karma, etc. Karma is just unfinished business, right? Somebody, and if you can take it in a story, somebody in a past life, our families feuded, they killed my brother and then I killed their brother and so on, right? Or whatever, however you look at it. And then you come to a point where now they've killed your brother and now it's your turn to kill their brother, right? And then you go, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to play that game anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so you change your karma because you're making a different decision. You're not just following the pattern, right? So when you're talking about soul agreements, there's many, many different levels and how people look at this in terms of what that is. So, but we do make agreements, having been here in our body, we make agreements about the things we would like to experience. Again, it's potential, it's free will. Most of the stuff is not a must. It's the potential. Like, so your soul has the potential or has a desire to become something, to learn things, to expand, to grow, to experience life differently. I believe that we're all here to experience what it is to be ourselves. Like, my belief is that we're an extension of the divine or the creative force of, the living force, God, whatever you want to call it. And each of us is an organism that is attached to the whole, but is here to have its own experience, and we can have any experience we want. The idea is, are we actually involved and enjoying that experience, or are we doing it to control others and be controlled, right? And that's fine. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's just, what do we want to experience? And if we're unhappy, then clearly, right, we're not experiencing what we want to experience. If we feel restricted, that we can't express ourselves, then or that somebody is stopping us from doing something, then we know that we have other desires, right? It can be, it's a very complicated thing, this soul agreement stuff, I have to say. So if you have a specific question around it, maybe I can answer.
Well, Celeste is asking, can agreements be cancelled?
Yes. So that's it. Most agreements can be dissolved or cancelled, or that's what you can do in the records. That's what I do, is release. Other people work in the records, release agreements, especially ones that you feel compelled. When we feel compelled about something, that's often because we're tied into something else. It's not natural to us, right? Yeah. So yes, agreements can be dissolved.
So if you feel,
we can change
agreement, how do you resolve that? How do you actually do that? How does one do that using the Akashic records?
So usually, people are asking a question, and then I'll ask, I'm connecting to your keepers. We all have our own keepers. So, I use a sacred prayer method to get into the records. You ask your question, and then I communicate with them and say, well, what's this about? What's the story? What is this agreement? Or is there agreement? Because I won't know. And then they'll say there's an agreement or programming. Sometimes it's multiple things. And then they'll say, or I'll ask the questions back and forward, is this something that can be dissolved? Like, do you want to be like this? This is some agreement. Your experience, it's hard when you just talk words. You got to give like an example. Like, say a person says, oh, I have this agreement to stay with this person or to behave in a certain way and I don't want to do it anymore. Then I'm going through the process, asking the questions to the record keepers, hearing what they say, repeating it to the person. Oh, here's an agreement. You made an agreement. Yes, this agreement can be dissolved. Do you want to dissolve it? And then most of the time people go yes, and then they do. It's an energetic thing. So through there, I work with them, and they do the energy and shift the energy, shift the compression, because so many things like agreements are like bindings. It's like we bound. And so when you think about it, or being imprisoned, as these things are moving out of your body, you release from it. So it depends on the agreement, right? But most agreements, some things take more than one session just because of them being more complicated. Or sometimes when I'm doing the clearings, it can take longer, a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on what it is. Usually a lot of agreements kind of like fit into one another. So it can be, more complicated than just one thing.
Yeah, the way that I often explain that is that very often there's the agreement and there's a whole lot of pillars, almost like one of those Roman structures, with all of the pillars, and there's the agreement at the top, and it's about taking those pillars out to collapse the building. And sometimes you can very strategically take out certain pillars and it collapses very quickly, and other times it takes some time to get enough pillars out for that structure to collapse. So I always think that's quite a good visual example of how it works. So I hope that answered your guys' questions, because both of those questions came in. How do you do it? And can agreements be cancelled? And Mermaid Sand Waves, what a nice name, says, I have looked forward to this content. Yay! Well, I'm glad that you are with us. So I'm not going to speak a little bit. I want you to speak a little bit about these beautiful cards that you have created. I've got a whole pack of them here, guys. And I mean, whoop, look at how beautiful these are. Just want to show you a few so that you get an idea of the artwork that has gone into creating these. They're absolutely beautiful. You remind me a little bit of Salvador Dali, Jen.
All right.
I think because of just from the magic of his work, and also from the perspective that it's so layered. These are all so layered, and they and you often find yourself somewhere in there as well. He used to use, for those of you that don't know Salvador Dali's work, he used to actually use the love of his life as his signature in a lot of his works, which I thought was just so romantic. But Jen, tell us a little bit about these cards.
So, yes, so when I came into the Akashic Records, fell into the Akashic Records and discovered them, and started studying. I was having readings, lots of readings to help me, because there's so many layers, and it's such a great way to release layers and layers and layers. Find yourself, And they had told me that I had this work, that I would be bringing through some work, and I remember thinking, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, in 2015, I'd gone to England and to Glastonbury, and went on this whole kind of spiritual experience. And when I was there, I connected to some energies, had some interesting experiences with lots of different energies. Anyway, so then I knew that I was going to do a card deck, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. I've always loved art, but I never had much experience actually creating art. So I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? And first I thought I'd get someone to help me, but I realized that I don't even know what they look like. So there's no way I can get anyone to help me until I do it. And so I had to learn. So I did it online. I did it's using images, right? What do you call that? I forget the word. But anyway, I just followed. These cards are highly energetic. So they're soul portals. And they're built in layers, just exactly. They've been built with lots and lots of layers. They took hours and hours to create. Took a whole year to do this deck. To build this deck, working.
I'm not surprised. They are layered and layered and layered. I've just actually pulled the one that you pulled when you
all right.
First did when we first met. Jen pulled this one for me, guys, which is really beautiful. But you can see that there are layers and layers and layers to these images. You can actually stare at them for a really long time, and you'll notice different things come forward to your attention.
Right. So they're alive. They are an energy that carry the energy of the Akashic Records. So they were created with the Akashic Records, and they actually move and change. So the cards become connected to you, and the more you connect to them, the more you begin to see. I mean, even when I created the cards, there are things in there I didn't put in there that the cards created. So they're very alive. You can travel into them. They speak to your soul. So it's very interesting. I find it fascinating. Yes.
So I did my first reading, and I think it would be lovely if we could, just to give people a little bit of a taste. We've got 11 minutes left.
Right. So we can do some questions, because I won't be in the records of the individual, but I can answer some questions if people have questions, and then do energetic clearing, healing, maybe meditation. These are all energies from the records. So I do have the capacity, that's one of my gifts from the records, that I can do these deep healings or clearings and the meditations, etc. So if we have maybe a subject or people asking questions, we can certainly do some clearings around or moving energy around some of those stuck things. Because, you know, when we talk about agreements, etc., there's many things that we collectively hold, many agreements, many conditions that we hold, programming that we hold about things. So, you know, everyone feels differently. So some people can have like one of those experiences and really, you know, change their lives. Others people may just feel a little bit. It is kind of like that, unwrapping a, what do you call it? It's like a dig.
An excavation.
Excavation. You know how when you're looking for things, architectural. No.
Gosh, Ross from Friends does it.
Yes.
When they go, when they find bones and old things that have been long buried, guys.
Right. So it's kind of like that. Your experience, just knowing that every soul, because we're electromagnetic, etc. We have different impulses and responses to different frequencies. So, you know, it's all frequency. So just the sound and the tone and what comes through, the energy that comes through can help you release the lighter, lose energetic weight. So it's just an expansion. You know, you want to expand your mind. The thing is we're controlled by, and we, you know, it's kind of weird to think how we're controlled by our minds that are so small. And yet there's this expanse of all this other experience, and it's our emotions, it's our feelings, right? It's through the heart that we actually experience so much more. That's why we talk about compassion and love and all of these things, because that's fuel to change our experience. Kindness. When we expect good things, we have good things because we're expanding our capacity to feel. So what we want to do is to filter through some of the blocked energies of the mind. You know, the mind is kind of crazy.
So we've got 4 minutes left, but I wanted to just, one of the first card I pulled, which is your current situation, right? And then the next one is the opportunity for flow, the thing that can move, and then there's the possible outcome. And so I got 9, which was wisdom weaving, a patchwork of color flowing into undiluting dreams of sacred, earthly, and galactical soil. I love this language, it's just too beautiful. But do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about this card?
Right. So that's one of the spreads, and you can do however you want, right? So the card number 9, soul portal number 9, you can just bring it here so we can see it.
Yeah, can you guys see that really nicely and clearly?
So I think of this card as a landscape, and the beauty of these cards is we all get to see whatever we see, and then there is no wrong or right. That is why there's no words. It's just a number to indicate what it is. And it is, to me, you know, and of course I see different things depending on who it is and what I'm reading. But to me, for you, I see this energy of there's this desire for you to go towards the creation of who you are. There's a lot of energy that's kind of pushing you towards where you want to go, to what you believe in about your expression, you know, the truth of who you are. There is this desire, this force that's kind of leading you. And it feels very, you know, feels very bright. Like, you know, there's a lot of color, there's a lot of enthusiasm around going towards what you believe in. This expression.
Well, that's actually how it felt for me as well. This like moving towards my authentic self, the truest version of myself. because we are obviously always ourselves, guys, but stripping away from the aspects that we've gathered along the way, you know, and really being in a space of authenticity and centeredness with who we are. And the second card I picked was liquid. And it's amazing, Jen, because I woke up yesterday morning. I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning because I'd been dreaming of this card of liquid the whole night. And it was like, got to get moving, got to like flow, get this flow going in my life. That was literally, that's what was happening in my dreams, like the whole night, liquid, water, this movement. And I see here it says potion for motion on the card.
Right. So it's this deck has 3 different kinds of cards. The soul portals, the first one, and then tools, and then numbers, or levels. So that is so powerful that, you know, the tools give you how you shift, right? There's different ways to use tools, but that's one of them. And it's amazing to think how this is how to just flow. It's giving you the direction of how you get to where you want to go, how you make it easy, as opposed to a struggle, right? Overthinking, when you go through the mind, can be too much thinking. It's too hard. What do I do? There's so much to do. And instead following the energy, right? Like lubricating the flow, filling the space that you're moving through with the liquid, right? To move, shifts how you experience this.
Absolutely. And we've literally got 1 minute left, but I had to show you guys, this is the last card that I pulled, and which is so beautiful. And it's the Garden of Eden. Birthing pool bears fruit. And I love that. Birthing pool bears fruit was such a beautiful title for this.
Right, and how powerful and rich when you think about that. That card relates a little bit to the 6 in the tarot, which is the Lover's card, and the energy of becoming, because that's alchemy of the 2 sides, right? The male and female, or your male and female, however, whatever you call it, coming together as one, right? And being able to feel that the joy, the love of being who you are, totally in sync with your experience.
Oh, I love it. I'm so excited about these cards, Jen. I'm so excited about your work. I had a session with Jen, and I have to tell you guys, it was so powerful. It was really, really beautiful. And I thought, I haven't stopped thinking about it. I've been so excited to get the cards, and I'm so excited to have you be a part of the Thrive Network. So welcome to you. We are so happy to have you be with us, and thank you so much for your time and being here today and sharing.
Oh, thank you so much for doing this and inviting me, and it's wonderful to
Absolutely a pleasure. And for everyone who's tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in today. Whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching a recording of this, please share with anybody that you think would find this to be useful. Just tag them in the comments below or share the post on your post. I'd really, really appreciate it. And give us some feedback. If you've got something, a specific topic, a specific question that you'd like to ask for 2 weeks' time, pop it in the comments below. I'll have a look through it before our next session. Thank you again so much for tuning in. I'm going to log off before we get cut off. Lots of love and blessings to you all. Bye for now.